I want to start with something that almost never gets said in audiology. You can hear, but you can't understand. Not clearly, you can't understand reliably, and you struggle in restaurants and when there's background noise or when someone speaks a bit too quickly for you or turns away. Or there are two conversations happening at once, so you can hear the sound, the words just don't land the way they used to. And if you've ever described this to someone, to a doctor, an audiologist, anyone, the answer you probably got was you need hearing aids. Or if you already have them, you need to give yourself some time to adjust. And you adjusted, and it still didn't fix it. Hi, I'm Awajimijana Otana, a hearing specialist at Verified Hearing and Tinnitus Clinic, and I want to tell you why. Here is what your audiologist almost certainly did not explain. Hearing loss is not a volume problem. It begins that way. The tiny hair cells inside your cochlea become damaged. They stop sending a clean signal to the brain. The signal gets quieter, yes, but it also gets distorted, degraded, incomplete. And your brain has been receiving that degraded signal for years. Now, here's the part that changes everything. The brain doesn't just receive a bad signal and struggle. It adapts, or should we say maladapts. Over months, over years, the auditory cortex, the part of the brain responsible for decoding speech, reorganizes itself around the distortion. It learns to work with what it's been given. It changes. Research published in the Journal of Neuroscience confirms it. The longer hearing loss goes unaddressed, the more measurably the auditory cortex changes. Areas deprived of clear sound get recruited by other sensory systems. The brain rewires itself. So when a hearing aid arrives, when it amplifies a signal and delivers it to the ear, it reaches a brain that has spent years adapting to a broken signal, a brain that no longer decodes sound the way it once did. The volume returns, but the clarity doesn't. Because clarity isn't about volume. Clarity is about how the brain processes the sounds it receives. And the hearing aid cannot fix that. Not on its own, not ever. There's this phrase I think about constantly. It comes from a colleague, Joe Montano, audiologist at New York Presbyterian Hospital. He says that getting hearing aids without auditory training is like getting a knee replacement without physiotherapy. Think about what that means. The surgery is necessary. The new knee is an important clinical tool, but without the structured rehabilitation that follows, without retraining the muscles, the gait, the movement patterns, the patient never fully recovers. The joint is fixed in this case, but the function isn't. Hearing is the same. Hearing is not one system, it is two. The peripheral hearing, so the ear, the cochlea, the acoustic signal traveling all the way, this is what the hearing aids address. And then you've got the central auditory processing, how the brain decodes, filters, sequences, and makes sense of what it hears. This is what no hearing aid addresses. Without both, without the device and the brain retraining that must come with it, you are treating half the problem. And half the problem is why people with hearing aids say, I can hear, but I can't understand. They are not wrong. They're not imagining it. They are experiencing exactly what incomplete treatment produces. At Verified Hearing, the entire clinic is built around one principle. Every person with hearing loss has two things that need addressing, not one. The signal reaching the brain and the brain's ability to process that signal. So the brain-based hearing program does both simultaneously. Precisely fitted hearing technology chosen and continuously optimized for your specific loss so that your auditory cortex can actually detect the signal. And then a series of structured brain retraining sessions, each targeted specifically around specific auditory processing functions, and it systematically rehabilitates how the brain decodes that signal. So decoding, auditory memory, speech and noise, integration, each one assessed, each one addressed. This is not amplification alone, this is restoration of your auditory processing. And every specialist in this clinic is trained to deliver hearing care in this way. Not half the solution, but holistically, the way hearing care should always have been delivered. Because one without the other is not a complete answer, and we will not offer you an incomplete answer. The patients who come to us have usually already been somewhere else in some cases. They've had a hearing test, they've had hearing aids already, but they've been struggling, not because the hearing aid has failed, but because no one addressed the second system. One patient told us, I thought I just needed to get used to my hearing aids. 4 years later, I couldn't follow conversations at dinner. Still, coming here and understanding what's actually happening, that changed everything. And another patient said, my GP told me hearing aids were the answer. Nobody told me the brain needed retraining too. That information gap cost me years. And that information gap is why this clinic exists. And it is why this program produces outcomes that hearing aids alone never could. The first step is the brain-based hearing assessment, not a standard hearing test. This is a complete assessment of both your systems, so your peripheral hearing and your central auditory processing. That gives us the full clinical picture that we need to deliver comprehensive hearing care. We have 2 clinics, one in Harley Street and on Wigmore Street, and you receive the results from your appointment on the same day, and you don't require a GP referral. If you've been told hearing aids are the answer, or if you have hearing aids and they haven't been enough, this is the assessment that shows you what was missing and what comes next. Look on the website and book an appointment. We're looking forward to welcoming you to Verified Hearing and Tinnitus Clinic. See you soon.